Testing, testing. The raffle tickets will be round very shortly. It's a lovely dress at the end. First prize. Running away. Just before I start the business, just a few words about the NHS. As some of you may know, earlier the week I had a slight problem and was taken to Southmead Hospital. The treatment and care that I received from all concerned at the hospital were brilliant. I won't hear a word against them. From the lady that Jeanne spoke to on the telephone to tell her to do the first aid, to the consultants that saw me later on in the hospital. They're brilliant. I won't hear a word against it. Especially for the young nurses there, they worked 12-hour shifts, and nothing was too much trouble for them. They were brilliant. Just imagine the scene. This actually happened to me on the morning I was discharged. A pretty young Polish nurse. This is at 5:30 in the morning. She gently shakes me. Philip, she says in her beautiful Eastern accent, I have to take your blood pressure. 5:30 in the morning. So I'm not quite with it, but I didn't argue. So she starts putting the contraption on my arm, pumping it up. And then she said in her lovely sexy voice, did you have any loose stools during the night? What service? Incredible. Now, thanks for all your cards, Hotmail, Facebook, brilliant. I haven't been able to answer all of them. It really is quite touching. And there's one lady that I can't thank. I will contact her later. Her Majesty the Queen. She also sent us a card, and it's down here somewhere, so you can have a look at it later on, but don't you take it away, man. First of all, I must thank everyone coming here tonight. It's brilliant, and it's lovely to see you, and I know quite a great number of you have travelled quite considerable distances to be here. We do really appreciate it. Thanks to all the family and friends who come to the hall this afternoon to put the decorations up. You've really done a grand job. It really is good. Thank you. And also thanks to Graham, who's going to video this for us, because it's going to pass us by in a bit of a flash. We're not going to be able to take it all in, and it'd be nice to have a permanent record for the future, just to have a look at it and see. Now, round about, Jeanne said that you're going to have to say a few words, and I didn't really want to do that, because as you get on a bit, the old memory seems it's so difficult to remember things. So, oh dear. She said, well, you can always jot a few notes down. So, it's going to be a short speech, and I'm not going to keep you up because there's a nice food at the end, and with a bit of luck afterwards you'll be tucking in. But she said, just drop a few notes down so that you can, just in case you. Only joking. Around about Christmas time, Jeanne and myself heard a bit of a buzz going around it. Going to organise a bit of a party. We didn't want any fuss, so we said no party, we don't want it. In fact, we're going on holiday. We're going to go on a cruise with a bit of luck, and just spend a weekend or a couple of weeks on our own. We didn't want any fuss. Now, I know Martin was disappointed, and I know the grandchildren were disappointed when in fact I overheard one, and I won't mention her name, saying, oh, spoil sport. But we weren't going to bother. Now, just after Christmas, Jeanne and I were lying quietly in bed. Well, when you've been married 60 years, you're inclined to spend mornings lying quietly in bed. She said, we should be celebrating our And we decided to. So we went back to Martin and the family and said, no, we are going to have a celebration, but we will make the necessary arrangements, and we will request no presents, because we thought it would be nice just to contribute to one of our favourite charities, the Heart Foundation Cancer Research on Mind. And Katie has constructed a beautiful box at the end of the hall, so to put any cards or donations in. That's brilliant. Thank you, Kate. Say, 60 years is a hell of a long time. Ronnie Briggs and the Ready Train Robbers never got that length of time. Where does one start? At the beginning, not too late. Many years ago, when I was a lot younger, I lived with the Scull family in Kingsdown, in, to be precise, a house. It was a junction of Montague Hill and Dove Street. Now, Dove Street is a very long street, and at the far end of Dove Street is Nine Tree Hill. Nine Tree Hill leads down to Stoats Croft. And at number 3 Nine Tree Hill lived the Cook family, a certain Jeanne Cook. I didn't know anything about Jeanne in those days. She didn't know me. We even attended the same school, Kingsdown Council School in South West Street. Still didn't know Jeanne. It wasn't until we both left school at 14 to start work that our paths crossed. At that time, I joined the Kingsdown Youth Club with my great friend Len Day, who sat over there. And that's when we first come across Jeanne and Ruth. Now, in those days, we weren't a bit interested girls, were we, Len? Not a bit. No, we weren't. Table tennis, snooker, football, girls, not interested. But there was one young girl at the club who was a bit sweet on me. I'd never give her any encouragement whatsoever. A girl by the name of Alma Cox. Now, to put Alma out of her misery, I invited her to the cinema one day. Now, in those days, I mean, it was early days, there weren't many televisions about, and there was always tremendous long queues for the cinema. So I went to meet up Alma on this particular day. Of course, Len come along with me as well. When she saw Len was coming with us, she wasn't too impressed. Do you remember that, Len? No. She still decided to come, so we joined the queue outside the Odeon and gradually work our way to the front. And when we got near the entrance, the attendant came out. One double and one single. The three of us go in. I sit with Len in the double, and Alma sits about 3 rows. She paid for herself. Well, that was the end of that. I think I had a lucky escape, I tell you. I think I had a lucky escape. Round about that time, this would have been in the early 1950s, national service was in. And when a lad reached the age of 18 and he was medically fit, he was called up by law to join 2 years in the armed services. Then went off to do his 2 years in the Royal Air Force. And because I was an apprentice painter and decorator, I was deferred for 3 years. The week I finished my apprenticeship and had my first tradesman's wage packet, which was £4.10, which was £4.50p in present, I had my call-up papers coming through the door. Now, during my 2 years in the army, especially long, lonely nights, I occasionally thought of Jeanne, wonder what she was doing, who she was going out with, if she was courting, and wonder how she was getting on. On my annual leave, I wandered down Nine Tree Hill, past number 3, on the off chance of bumping into her, but no luck. And I never had the courage to go in and ask after her. Well, 2 years eventually passed, and I returned back home to Prior House. One Saturday night, my brother Ron asked me to go dancing with him. Now Ron is no longer unfortunately with us. Was quite a good dancer, so he told us. And I didn't want to go. I couldn't dance. I had 2 left legs. But he persisted, and he offered to buy me a couple of pints of Devonport's Best Bitter down at the Bay Horse. Well, I couldn't refuse that, so I said I would go with him. In those days, and you youngsters won't believe it, there was no such things as mobile phones and iPads and computers. If a young man wanted to meet a pretty young lady, he went dancing to a local dance hall. And in Bristol at that time, there were 3 popular dance halls: the Grand Spa Ballroom by Clifton Suspension Bridge, the Corn Exchange down at in town, and the Glen Ballroom on the edge of Durham Downs. Now, all those are long gone. In fact, the Glen Ballroom, where it was, is now the Spire Hospital. Lucky for me, Ron chose to go to the Glen. And we drove up there in his old Vauxhall car, and I can remember the index number of that car, part of it. It was BED. And he used to take great delight if he met a young lady at dancing to invite them into bed with him after the dance. He was a character, my friend. We get to the Glen, it's really crowded, and Ron disappears to find a partner, and I wander to the edge of the dance floor, and watching all these hundreds of young couples enjoying themselves, feeling quite envious. And then suddenly, it was like a bolt of lightning. It struck me. There, in the middle of the ballroom, was my brother Ron dancing with the most beautiful girl in the whole ballroom, Jeanne Cook. I was mesmerised. I'm sorry, love, if I'm embarrassing you, but this is the truth. I just could not get over it. She looked absolutely lovely. I can still remember what she was wearing. She had a light blue gingham full skirt on, a white blouse, and that set off her blonde hair. I was mesmerised. When the dance finished, I pushed my way through a throng of dancers to where Jeanne was standing. I'll never forget her face. It just lit up when she saw me. Now, I don't know whether she was overjoyed at seeing me or the fact that she didn't have to dance with Brother Ron again. She agreed to let me see her home that night. And I arranged a date the next night. And the following weekend, Sunday lunch. I think it was for her mum and dad to give me the once over. Now, Jeanne's dad was a local shoe repair. When he discovered that I was a painter and decorator, next day, or 2 days later, I'm decorating the kitchen out. That was our romance well and truly soon. We got married on the 8th of September 1956 in the parish church of St James Barton, Bristol. Now, St James Barton is acknowledged to be the oldest parish church in Bristol, and we had the oldest parish vicar officiating, the Reverend Ezekiel Hopkins. He was a miserable so-and-so. He told me off at the wedding. Me, on my wedding day, in front of all my relatives and friends, Ezekiel told me off. Just picture the scene. We're stood at the front of the church, Jeanne looking absolutely radiant in that beautiful wedding dress. It's not a raffle prize, it was a wedding dress at the back of the hall. And I'm in a really nice suit that I bought at Moss Bros up Park Street a couple of weeks before. And Ezekiel started the wedding vows. Do you, Philip John Skull, take Jeanne Cook to be your lawful wedded wife? I do, I said. Not yet, he shouted. And glared at me. This is true, he glared at me. And he then carried on. And then he nodded. No, he said. And that's when I never felt so small and embarrassed in all my life. The rest of the day is a bit of a blur. We we had our reception above Keen's Bakery, Park Row. Ruth and Cliff was there. It was nice. In the evening, early evening, Brother Ron took us down in his beloved bed to Tempermead Station. We were off to Torquay for a week's honeymoon. Well, we didn't spend quite a week there because we'd come back a day early because my great friend Len Day, was marrying Geraldine the following week, and he kindly asked me to be best man. Thank you, Len. Well, I think the only reason he asked me to be best man was because he wanted an experienced married man who could point him the ways and all the pitfalls of married life. Well, we got 120 years of married bliss between the pair of us, Len and Geraldine. And I don't think we got too bad, actually, have we? That guest house, two things always stuck in my memory about that guest house. I suppose, being in the decorating trade, I noticed the decor in the dining room, and what intrigued me was there was 2 doors leading out. Each door had 6 panels on, and each panel had a country scene painted on it. I was fascinated. And the other thing was, there was a young couple there from Birmingham, and they were accompanied by their young son, a lad of about 6 or 7, and the most spoiled kid I've ever known in my life. He was a little bee, he really was. And he was rude to to parents, to the guests, the staff, and not once during that week did the parents of that young lad correct him. And the best part was the father was a probation officer in Birmingham. Now, Jeanne and myself, we vowed that if we were lucky enough to have a family, there was no way that they would grow up like that little horror. Well, we were blessed with 4 fabulous kids. Okay, I'm biased, I know I am. But they were brilliant. And we're so proud of them, and we love them dearly. And those 4 children blessed us with 9 fantastic grandchildren. But once again, I'm biased, and we're really proud of them, and we love them dearly. They're really lovely. Bear with me a second. Talk amongst yourself. Sorry about this. Looking around the hall tonight, got it. I must congratulate all you ladies. You all look so beautiful, and you take such great care to look nice for us fellas. I know it's very difficult, and the cry goes up half the time when you go out. I've got nothing to wear, or I don't know what to wear. It's so easy for us guys. We just put on a pair of trousers, maybe a clean shirt and a tie, and off we go. But tonight, for instance, Jeanne put 3 different outfits on the bed, deciding what to wear, and of course she chose the best one. Then she went to her wardrobe, and she took out an item of clothes, and she put it on. She's looking at herself in the mirror, and she says, "Do you know what, love?" She still calls me love sometimes, another name. She said, "I bought this item of clothes 60 years ago in Torquay. It still retained its colour. I can still wear it, and it still fits me." And I looked at her and I said, "Of course you can, you silly old fool, as a scarf." Trouble is, when you're getting on, time flies. It really goes by so quickly. And over the 60 years we've been married, we've had some wonderful times. And tonight is up there amongst the best of them, and never forget it. But in the past few years, we've had some terrible low times. And terrible low times, terrible black periods when we've lost loved ones that's been so dear to us. It's only the love and support of all the family and our friends that have carried us through. So thank you. So on behalf of our family, Martin and his family, Tim and his family, Jackie and Pete, and of course, Jeanne and Grandad Phil, thank you, friends, family. We could not have got through those terrible black periods without your support. A heartfelt thank you. Before I sit down I'd like you to raise your glass and drink a toast to two wonderful couples, to two couples that if tonight and the rest of the 60 years would not have been possible. I'd like you to raise your glass to Beatty and Joseph Scaw, my mother and father, and to Mabel and Ernest Cook, Jean's mother and father, who incidentally bequeathed to me a diamond. Jeanne, thank you. Thank you.
Who deserves?